Yeah. Ah, yeah. Hell yeah, you're feeling it. I can see it in your eyes. You're a born-again predator. Feeling that blood bubbling inside you, lifting you up. That's it, kid. That's what it's all about right there. All right, now. I want to suck your blood. I want to suck your blood. You rat sucker!
Have you ever played a game so atmospheric, so great, that you remember it for years and years? That's the case for me and Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. The Swan Song of Troika, a masterpiece of a game. A very flawed masterpiece I might add, but still a masterpiece nonetheless. For me it's the golden standard of what a vampire game should be like. Dripping with atmosphere, lore and 2004's LA vibes all into one. Sure, I recall that the thought of interacting with its combat at some parts could use some fixing, but stalking prey, playing political undead games and immersing yourself in the midnight aristocracy is an experience I recommend to everyone, even if Evanescence is not your favorite band. So it should come to no one's surprise that when Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 was announced back in 2019, I was over the moon. A new game in one of my favorite ever settings? Oh, the possibilities. New graphics and no bugs, maybe gameplay that doesn't make me wanna cry every time I have to fight someone, a bigger map, side quests that don't end abruptly. The possibilities were endless. Unfortunately, it will not come to pass. The final product we got is far from ideal. And while I understand that no sequel will ever give me the same feeling as playing the first game back on my father's laptop, it was still too much of a disappointment. Me, like most people, got our first indication that the game would probably not be our dream sequel when the game was delayed again and again. Things got even worse when the game switched developer mid-production, from Hardsuit Labs to the Chinese room. This raised a lot of red flags, as you can imagine. I mean, no game that has been through multiple developers has ever been a success story, let's be real. The game looked rough on the first gameplay video they showed, and it all somehow felt off. No deep RPG systems were shown, nor was the combat looking any better than the first games. Still, hope is the last to die, so I thought I should play the game first and then decide if it's worthy of being a sequel to one of the greatest RPGs of the early 2000s. And after I did, I can safely say that it's not. But why? What went wrong? What could they have done differently? And is there anything worth for you to experience in this game? Well, let's find out together. The first game is more than 20 years old at this point, and the gameplay for the most part, especially combat, hasn't aged that well. To be fair, combat was the worst part of the original game anyways. You mostly used a couple of abilities and to whack people with objects and or occasionally shot them. What has aged like fine wine though is the atmosphere. From the first cutscene of the game, it becomes clear what this game is about and that you are about to be injected into the world of darkness, a place where immortal beings are playing games on the fringes of human society. I won't go into the details of the plot because A, I think you should experience the twists and turns of it for yourself, and B, while the story is enjoyable, it's not the reason the game has this cult-like status today. No, you see, the game is remembered for a different kind of reason altogether. It's remembered because you could get lost in the dim-lighted backstreets, prowling and stalking like a predator. The night sky with the moon between the skyscrapers guiding your steps while you uncover mysteries and solve riddles, with the occasional brawl and or midnight snack. That is why Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is so fondly remembered, because it was made with such care and detail that made you feel like a monster of legend in modern times. Modern as 2004 is concerned at least. Now in 2025, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 tries to recapture that feeling, with the white snow streets of Seattle being the setting of the game. You can now climb to buildings, no need to walk or take a taxi, and this time around your guise is very easily protected. You can glide through buildings and you can run as fast as the Flash, as long as you don't feel a bar at the end. Some might say that this is more convenient or a necessary sacrifice in order for the game to be more accessible, but no matter the excuse, the fact remains that you don't feel like a vampire hiding in human society. Heck, most of the people you talk to are vampires in the game, same as the enemies. There is no human society to blend into. It's just flying from combat scenario to combat scenario. In the first game, you had to take a taxi to fast travel anywhere. You couldn't fly or teleport there, but the fact remains that you're an immortal creature that still uses services that a mortal would use, because you have to blend in. But that's not the case in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines too. Now you can just fly, and if someone sees you, then it's all good, because in 5 seconds they will forget. But before I talk about the Masquerade system, I want to talk about the atmosphere a bit more, because I do believe there are certain moments when Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 tries and even achieves to create an atmosphere you can immerse yourself, only to destroy that in the next minute. For instance, there is a cozy bookstore that vampires hang out. You go there to meet an NPC at some point, the snow is falling and the inviting atmosphere lures you in. There, you talk to the owner and she's a grandpa vampire. You talk to the NPC, you feel immersed in the moment, and then you walk out and you start running like a speedster to the next objective marker that is 2 streets down. All that mood they build, gone in 2 seconds thanks to the movement system. Oh, I didn't mention how the map is literally a square box and you are constantly ping-pong to the same 4 corners, did I? Well yes, here it is. This is the map in all its glory. That's the whole of Seattle. 3 bars, a bookstore and a tower. The rest of the unique areas are used again and again for side quests, so they don't count. Before we get deeper into the comparison, explain why Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 it's not a worthy sequel. I would like to take a moment to talk about the development of both games, as both of them were troubled. But where one game turned out flawed but amazing, the other turned out less than ideal. The first game was made by a team of ex-Fallout devs and was extremely passionate, but had budget and time constraints. Famously, the game had to release after Half-Life 2 as it used Valve's Source engine. The game released unfinished and was riddled with so many bugs that would make Ubisoft blush. Troika died that day, but a cult classic was born. Even now, after 20 years, fans have kept the game alive with unofficial patches. Most footage you see are captured while playing with the unofficial patch. Now, Bloodlines 2 had also its own fair share of development troubles. As I told you earlier, the game faced multiple delays, restarts and creative disagreements. It went as far as Paradox removing Hardsuit Labs from the picture entirely, and the game was given to the Chinese room, known for a machine of pigs. Rewrite after rewrite, the game changed both in scope and character, ultimately becoming very different from the original vision. Again, it all comes down to the first gameplay revealed to me. It all felt off. It didn't feel like the World of Darkness to me. And it's not like I wasn't open-minded or just nostalgic. The game really didn't seem like an RPG. It looked a lot like a Dishonored clone, without the charm obviously. Dishonored is a great game, don't get me wrong, but it's not Vampire the Masquerade. And Bloodlines 2 didn't seem to know the difference. Now after playing the game, I can safely tell you that I was right. The game is a bare bones action game that has very simplistic combat and no real choice to be made. Sure, you can choose your clan and that affects some dialogue and your starting abilities, but the story plays out the same and your experience never changes. In the first game, playing as a Malkavian or Nosferatu had real consequences. As a Nosferatu, you had to roam the shores to go anywhere, as anyone seeing you above ground will result in an immediate Masquerade violation. Just walking around had that much of an impact. Your playthrough and choices were always in flux because of that. As a Malkavian, your dialogue choices changed, and while at the start it seems like gibberish, if you're on a second playthrough, you can see that it's not gibberish, but information of the future. In your first playthrough, you will not understand those details, but now in your second playthrough, everything seems fresh. That's the amount of detail a good vampire RPG needs, and pretty much any good RPG to be fair. So when in the second game you choose your clan, and when it all it does is change a couple of lines, it's so disappointing. Like, did any on the dev team play the original? And I know it's not that the devs lacked vision. They chose not to include Malkavians or Nosferatu as playable clans due to the huge work that would entail to implement. But come on, without meaningful choices or a competent story, the first game would have been nothing. I have already explained how it's not remembered for its combat. The second game it's only gonna be remembered because it didn't live to the original's expectations. One thing I wanna touch on is the character creation, or to be precise, the lack thereof. Both games had a preset character and look, and both games handled that differently. The first game had you pick a clan, and each clan had 2 pre-made character models, one for each gender. You couldn't change your appearance at all, but you could allocate stats freely. You also had the choice of answering a few questions, and depending on your answers, the game will choose for you a clan that best suited you. While this system can be a bit constraining when it comes to customization, it also enhances the storytelling in very creative ways. Vampires in the World of Darkness don't randomly create progeny, but actually reserve this act for worthy individuals that would be a benefit for their clan or or the creator at least, some for instance a streamer, will most likely choose a person that displays traits like inquisitiveness and an aptitude for sciences or the occult. In lore, they are very strict about who they embrace. On the same vein, a Ventru would choose someone that displayed authority and so on. This is represented perfectly with the pre-made character models. For instance, both Malkavians look insane, the Ventru look like his father is a lawyer, and the gangrel vampires look like they enjoy a certain type of music and pastime. In the sequel, your clan choice has no effect on appearance, and it only affects your starting outfits and abilities. You can unlock the rest of the outfits and abilities by doing the monotonous side quests, but it's really not worth it since you can only have 4 abilities active at any time. The outfits you unlock are pretty lame for the most part. I played with a female protagonist, but I'm pretty sure they're the same for the male counterpart. All of those little details from the first game gone. There is no storytelling here, no attention to the little things. Even your background is vague on purpose so it can fit with whatever clan you choose. You can answer some questions from other characters to fill your backstory, but everything is kept vague as I said earlier, so it doesn't affect the story or anything important. This is another area where the sequel just doesn't live up to the standard of the first game. You feel so restricted in every single thing you do. It feels soulless, having no depth of character. The game is playable and it can be entertaining for sure, but it's just forgettable. Another thing that I have to mention is the side quests and the overall content of the game. The original game had a lot of interesting quests that weren't part of the main story. From hunting a serial killer to helping anime girls, and from psychos that use limbs as weapons to helping a dominatrix. The second game has none of that. No charming side characters, no interesting side quests, and no dominatrix. Side quests in the second game barely qualify as quests, as it would be more accurate to call them tasks. They are literally tasks that have you go in X location and kill X amount of enemies. The reward for these are abilities from clans you didn't choose at the start. More accurately, you get ability points to unlock them when you have enough blood points. Blood points are gathered by random NPCs that you can seduce or aggravate to make their blood taste in certain way. It's a waste of time as I said earlier. You have no need for blood other for the usage of abilities, but you can feed mid-combat and there is no fear of letting the beast out like in the first game. Blood in the first game was everything, from your HP to your abilities to your humanity. Using too much of your blood and killing innocents could drive you to frenzy at the worst time. Such depth is what made the first game the legend that it is today. I want to touch slightly on combat for the second game, because there is not much else to talk about. The combat is button mashing at worst and boring at best. I had to lower the difficulty, not because I had a hard time, but because the enemies were so spongy. You are supposed to be this elder vampire, and it takes you 300 punches to kill a random thug. On the easiest difficulty, to the game's credit, you actually feel powerful as you can one-shot people with your fist and compel them to do actions or use powerful abilities without limits, like an elder vampire should be able to. Previously, I briefly explained the Masquerade system. I want to emphasize it a bit more, because if there is one thing that shows how differently these two games understand the concept of a vampire hunting among humans, it's this. In Bloodlines 1, the Masquerade wasn't just a little UI icon, it was everything. Feeding on public, violation. Pulling out your clothes in front of a random guy, violation. Using powers in the wrong alley, violation. Too many violations. Too many violations. The Inquisition is now hunting you. The system made you think, it made you plan your feeding, choose dark corners, stalk humans like an actual predator. It made you feel like you were constantly playing a dangerous game where one slip up could get you a game over screen. Now let's look at Bloodlines 2. It completely kills the tension of being a vampire in the shadows. How am I supposed to feel like a creature of the night when I'm essentially the Flash with fangs and no one cares? The Masquerade system in the sequel is basically suggestion, not a rule, and without the tension, the whole fantasy falls apart. Now let's talk about something you might not think about consciously, but absolutely feel, and it's the music. Bloodlines 1 had an incredible soundtrack. Clubs had their own identity, the ambient tracks were unsettling in the best way, and the licensed songs, iconic. Isolated is basically a vampire anthem at this point. The music made LA feel dangerous, seductive, alive. In Bloodlines 2, look, the music is fine, it exists, but that's the problem, it just exists. It never elevates a scene, it never sticks with you, it never buries itself in your brain the way the first game soundtrack still does 20 years later. When I walk into a club in Bloodlines 1, I feel like a creature of the night about to start trouble. When I walk into a bar in Bloodlines 2, I feel like I wandered to the soundtrack of a mobile game. It's not bad, it's just forgettable, and vampire stories should never be forgettable. So, with all of this in mind, the shallow missions, the bare bones combat, the tiny map, the the downgraded role-playing, the missing clans, the forgettable soundtrack. The real question becomes, is Bloodlines 2 worth playing at all? Because the game is not unplayable and it's far from the worst game ever made. There are moments, tiny sparks, where you can see what this game wanted it to be. You can see the ambition, the vision, the traces of something that could have recaptured that World of Darkness magic. But those moments never last. And that's what makes Bloodlines 2 so frustrating. Not that it's terrible, but that it could have been so much more. After spending all these hours with Bloodlines 2, after replaying the original, after comparing, contrasting, ranting, praising, complaining, where does that leave us? Bloodlines 2 is not the sequel we dreamed of for 20 years. Not the return of the World of Darkness to gaming greatness. Not the spiritual successor to a flawed masterpiece that somehow carved its name into gaming history. It's a functional game with vampires. And sometimes, if the snow is falling just right and the lighting behaves, you can almost trick yourself into thinking you're playing something special. But then you glide across 3 rooftops, punch a guy 80 times, clear a combat room for the 10th time, and reality hits you. Bloodlines 1 felt alive, chaotic, weird, passionate, broken, but alive. Bloodlines 2 feels safe, sanitized, designed by a committee. It doesn't take risks, it doesn't surprise you, and it doesn't immerse you in the messy, seductive, dangerous world of the undead. And that's the biggest tragedy. Not that it failed, but that it never dared to burn as brightly as the original, even if it risked collapsing under its own ambition like Troika once did. But hey, that's my take. Maybe you'll enjoy it more than I did. Maybe you'll find something in there that clicked for you. And if you did, honestly, that's good. Games don't have to be perfect to be meaningful. The first Bloodlines proved that better than anything. Anyway, thank you for sticking with me through this little journey into the night. If you played either game, tell me your experience in the comments. I genuinely wanna know. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe as it really helps the channel. I also want to thank you for sticking with me despite the accent. I know that it can be sometimes hard to understand what I'm saying, but I've got more content on the way, so see you next time.
You rat sucker!